Today I'm talking with Fred Deichler. We talked about microbrewing and how other people's expectations waited on him.
I'm Ivanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it.
Hello everyone, and hello with me. I have Fred. Uh, I think that's how I should pronounce your name, Fred. I think there is much difference in different languages. And with me here, and that's the thing I said I wanted to show. Here for me, it is Belgium. I'm in Ghent, and we're going to the United States to Grants Pass, if I'm
Absolutely.
correct.
That is
And
correct.
and of course, I don't want to show the exact location. We don't want to help stalkers about where it is exactly. Um, and with me, it's just a little bit, a couple of minutes after 9 o'clock in the evening on a Monday evening. And what's the time and date on your side?
It's also still Monday, but it is just past noon here.
So I'm in the future of you. I'm just a couple of hours or well 9 hours ahead of you then. So that's how we roll these days. Thanks to all the software that we have, it is possible to have this kind of conversation in a remote way. And if we would not have said it, it would have been hard for people to know the time
Exactly.
zones difference and everything. Well, Fred, before we jump into the questions, could you introduce yourself? What do you want people to know about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Fred Deichler. I think many people in the EU can probably pronounce my name easier than they can in America. It usually gets butchered because it is of a German origin. Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I've been learning that for a while, more than just that phrase. What do people want to know about me? Well, I'm Scrum Master and Agile Coach based on the West Coast of the United States. I live very rural, actually, like I'm in the middle of a forest, and my background that's behind me is normally trees and mountains, and people are always surprised. They're like, "Is that your house?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's out there. It's right out back there." Um, so I've been practicing, Scrum and Agile for at least a decade, and before that, I was a manager over engineering teams. I've always focused on enabling and empowering teams.
thank you. It's interesting. German is one of the three official languages in Belgium, but I hardly speak it. I had 4 years of German in school, but last time I went to Germany, no, not the last time, but one of the times I went to Germany, my partner gave us a weekend in Germany in some kind of city where it turned out in that small village actually nobody spoke English. So and I tried my best German, and they replied to me that they didn't understand Dutch, and that was probably the last sentence of German I've ever spoken. So yeah,
I was
that's it for it. Yeah.
I was in Ghent just last year at the Global Scrum Gather, or sorry, Regional Scrum Gathering.
Hmm.
Beautiful city, and when I was there, I took a walking tour of of I think, yeah, of Brussels. So I know not Ghent, but I took a walk tour of Brussels, and our guide said every year, like the president or prime minister, their annual speech, they give it based off the percentage of the population in that language. So about 45% is in Dutch, another or 50% Dutch, 50% in French, or 47%, and like usually it's like the last part of the speech is actually in German, just to represent that percentage of the culture that speaks German. So I understand it's not
Yeah,
very popular in Belgium.
it's a very small part, and actually, it's my fourth language because I actually learned English before I learned German, and indeed just a couple of years. And my children, like my oldest one, had like 1 hour of German for 1 year. I'm like, what can you learn in 1 hour for 1 year? 1 school year's like that. I doubt he now, 3, 4 years later, knows anything anymore about that language.
Yeah,
Um, because languages, you need to, yeah,
you
at
need to use
least
it.
I guess the idea is that if people wanted to move on and learn more languages, that at least they had an idea of that language, something like that. But in his case, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so we jumped right into already a little bit of who we are and what to know. So let's jump completely into these questions. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
Um, that's a big question, and I wrestled with that one for a long time because it's like, what influences me, and I actually go back quite a bit back in the past, not to date myself too much, so I won't give out dates, but in high school, many years ago, before cell phones, um, in my senior year, I don't know if this is the same in Belgium, but you vote on different personas for people. Most athletic, all these things, and um, I was voted most likely to succeed. And it was like, there's a male and a female, and I voted that, and it, I don't say it caught me off guard, but it really landed with me other people's expectation of me, and that weighed on me for a long time. And for a long time in my life, I'm not sure I really felt like I had fulfilled upon that. But it was, in reflection, other people have seen something in me for quite a long time, since I was young, to give me this, honor. I mean, I was not the valedictorian of my high school. I was not even second. I don't even think I was top 10%, but there was just something about me that stood out to people that, Fred's going to go somewhere. Um,
Wow,
yeah,
that's nice to get. And do you know what triggered that, or did you have conversations with people around that?
I will say I didn't follow up on that, but since then, um, that persona's kind of followed me. And just, I think it's the presence that I generally have in conversations, like a calming presence, assuredness, not arrogance, but confidence to go through and try things, to realize that in most situations, everything's going to be all right. I was going to find a way to get things done in a effective and efficient manner.
Hmm. That's that is a nice, yeah, kind of. It's nice, and at the same time, I understand that it puts a lot of pressure on you. It's like, okay, because you were very young at that age, so then if people then tell you this, that's yeah, I can imagine that it brings the dual emotions in you.
Yeah, and so, after high school, I went to college, and I actually dropped out. I didn't finish the first time around. I'd started working like regular retail jobs, worked in the food industry, and then slowly and surely, got back onto, I'll say, a successful path. And I did finish that college degree during COVID, nights and
Wow.
weekends, on my computer, while, my wife was doing a great job taking care of the kids in the house. Um, but yeah, I kind of like, I guess I feel more better today that I'm fulfilling upon that other people's vision of me. Um, but it's still something that sits with me.
Hmm. Yeah, I can imagine, and especially at yeah, that age that you get these kind of messages, um, and so what you said is that you then achieved during COVID. That's a lot of years after, I guess.
Yes.
Um, well. I don't know what age you are because you didn't want to reveal it, but still, at this, I kind of assume your high school is past at least some years.
Yes.
So that's what triggered you to still do this at that moment. Was that related to this message, or was that something else? That
I think a little bit related because it was like something that was unfinished. I'd started something and I didn't finish it. Um, that was probably part of it, but I was at a spot where I wanted to move on potentially to new organizations, and most of the job applications I saw required like a 4-year degree, and I hadn't finished it despite my industry experience, leading engineering teams. I didn't have that, so it was like this barrier, this invisible barrier that was standing in my way, and I wanted to kind of show something to my kids, my 3 boys, um, about effort and determination, setting a goal and going out and achieving it, because it was always something that was it was a black mark on my own internal resume that I had never fulfilled this thing, um, that I see many people globally who do, and it's why didn't I? And so I found an
mm,
opportunity. I was originally a applied math and computational sciences major, but I didn't really use that professionally. So I got my degree in business management because it's closer to the work I was doing, and I was still able to carry over quite a few of my credits, but it wasn't quite the sciences background that I had originally had all those years ago.
yeah, I can imagine that. But I guess the drive to do it was different than when you originally started.
Yeah, I think a lot of people when they finish high school here, um, they go because they feel that's what they're supposed to do. It's less
Mhm.
about a choice; it's more about like an expectation. And this was more about a choice. Like I wanted to finish this thing to have a piece of paper that showed like I set out to accomplish something and I did accomplish that.
Yeah, and like you say, showing that to your children, like yeah, even if you do it on a later stage in life, it's like yeah, you know what, you can still, even if you drop out for whatever reason, you can still finish it so much later. So,
Exactly.
and that's a nice message, and it's a more powerful message by doing it than saying anything, I would say, right?
100%. It is one thing just to say something. It's another to follow through. And so I know my boys, they saw me follow through on this thing.
It might put a lot of I don't know how what age they are, but it might put pressure on them as well. I can imagine. Well, I have to think. I think I was 15 or 16. Yeah, I think I was 16 or 17 when my father started at university as well, and I had to start the next year, and so he did great, and he combined the first and the second year while working, and he had like great numbers, and I had to start the next year. And I failed, and then saying like, "Well, yours was years ago. I didn't have that excuse," because he basically was doing yeah, he was still studying then the next year. So but again, that that didn't bother me later as well. So it's indeed just like okay, it's a different, I now understand when you start to learn something when you're older, just like you say, it's for a completely different reason. You know why you consciously decide on doing it and following through. um, Probably much better time management wise than when you're younger. At least that's how I saw it for my father, and I see for a lot of friends who are doing similar stuff right now. So yeah.
Absolutely.
And do you plan on doing much with that? Is that something that is just for yourself, or is that something that helps you in your job? The knowledge and or the stamp? I don't know.
I can't say in my current job if it feels like it actually applies, which is it's kind of sad because went into it as like there was this barrier to getting through the door, like with recruiters, and I get this thing, and it's like, do I apply it in a daily basis? And I don't I don't believe so. Which is, for all the money being spent, that's kind of a kind of sad thing. But for me, I have that personal sense of accomplishment, so maybe that's what helps drive me daily.
Hmm. Well, and if it teaches your children something, that might be still money well spent, either
Yes.
independent of what you will do with it. But thanks for sharing that. Let's
Welcome.
move to that second question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what would have become of you?
So my first thought was, the hobbies that I have right now. And one of our big hobbies is kind of a family. Is we have a large garden in our backyard that we grow a lot of our own food. We're not self-sustained, but we grow a lot, and a lot of pride in eating the food that we grew. But when I thought about it further, I think I'd actually like to be a brewer, like a beer brewer. And I did that at home for many years. I've not done it in at least a decade by now, but I really enjoyed the science of it, the flavor, the attention to detail, the end result that you could share with people.
Mm.
And everywhere I've gone around the globe, like, so many conversations happen over a pint of beer. And I like to be that guy who makes that one that people are like, I want what he created.
Mm.
So that's what I think I'd probably do. I always enjoyed like touring um, beer making facilities, to seeing all everything that goes into it, and just like how, with the three or four ingredients can create something that really changed the world. I mean, if you think back thousands of years ago, beer was purified water that was safe to drink. And
Mhm.
then now it's much more than that, with so many different styles and profiles. But um, I think that's probably what I would like to do. I would have liked to have got into beer brewing.
That's yeah. And when you say that, when do you think about a small brewery, or just to have, I don't know, to use it with friends, or really to make it as a small factory to sell it, or even grow bigger? I don't know.
Probably not too big. I mean, having a pub where you served your own beer that was actually good beer, that doesn't
Mm.
taste like home brewed beer but actually tastes like good beer, is probably that spot where I'd like to land. I do like games a lot, like board games, and I've always enjoyed the small breweries that had beer and like tables to play board games at. It's kind of like the beautiful intersection. So, playing off of that potential other career choice, having, not a restaurant with a full kitchen, but something where there's tables and people could get out their favorite games and enjoy personal connection, while drinking, hopefully, a well crafted brew.
Mm. So what I'm hearing is it's not just the brewing, but there is also the kind of culture around it, and some, yeah, the because if you're talking about games playing and everything, it's like, again, like the small club, and bringing people around you together and serving them something that you created yourself. Similar, it sounds a little bit indeed like what you said around your garden, where you say, okay, we're not self-sustainable, but still we do. You didn't say we eat from it, but still, that's a little bit what I'm hearing. You're creating some stuff, but then if it would be a brewery for a pub, that would be at a little bit larger scale, I would say.
Yeah.
That's yeah, that's a very interesting conversation, an interesting thing of looking at your life in a different way. Is that let's call it a dream, or that idea? Is that something you had for a very long time, or is that something like, for example, you talked about COVID and doing that education? Is that something that popped up then? Because I saw a lot of people around me thinking about, oh, I want to change my life in this or that direction, or was that something that was already there for a long time?
It was there for a long time. I remember I was when I lived in the Denver area in Colorado. I was just after getting married, and I got a beer brewing kit for Christmas, and I really liked it, and so just did it quite a bit from then. I've not done it, like I said, recently. Just it's takes up space and time, and I just haven't had that time because I'm focused on the other endeavors. But it's been around. It's been something I've enjoyed for quite a long time.
So yeah, and in that sense, I also hear like it's there as a kind of idea, but it's not something you pursue actively, right?
No, maybe when the kids are older and out of the house, and I have a little bit more time, maybe it's something I'll do, or maybe there'll be different hobbies.
That's a little bit what, well, I'm always thinking about when the kids are out of the house and we have more time. If I look at my parents, like they have a lot less time than since they get working. Okay, probably because of a lot of the hobbies, but it looks like their agenda is even more full as before. But you never know, because indeed it's probably because my parents have a lot more hobbies, which of course some of them I know, but some others I might not be aware. So yeah, let's see. Let's talk again in a couple of years, or I don't know when the kids are out, and see if there's something changes. That might be interesting. Let's move to that next question. What do you consider at this moment your biggest challenge? At least the biggest challenge you want to share openly on the internet, and why is that a good thing for you?
So for this one, it's tempering my need to learn and improve with the time it takes to follow through.
Mm,
I'm consistently and constantly learning new ideas and techniques and patterns and practices to be a more effective Scrum Master and Agile coach, to add to my toolbox. And but it takes time to implement these things, to find the right situation for them, and to really follow through to check their efficacy. And not everyone I work with, other Scrum Masters with the teams, are as hungry for continuous improvement as, as I am.
mm.
And I know early on in my career, when I would go learn about something, either a conference or read a book or hear it on a podcast, come into work on Monday and I'd like to try pieces of it. And the situation it could get into with some of my teams, they'd come in and say, okay, what's Fred's idea this week? And that's not always a healthy place for a team to be, because you got to give ideas time to see if they actually work, if there was actually a problem. Like sometimes it was a solution looking for a problem, which is never really a good way to go about approaching helping teams.
Well, especially if you want to, if you would force an idea on them, I'm like, I learned something in the training. Let's now use you as guinea pigs to do it, and preferable, let's do it by the end of the day or in the next hour. That's definitely not something that has worked. And so, what I'm hearing is that I'm joking a little bit about it, but I'm hearing that you're fully aware of this, and yet I also hear that it's tempting, or there is, yeah, you want to improve. And if I look at me, this is also why I like to go to training courses, to get inspired and to learn something. And so how do you find that balance?
I've It's having those items, those patterns and practices in my toolbox, and when a situation arises, being able to suggest something that might fit in in that specific situation, and then reflecting on personally, like, where did I learn that thing and that I could finally apply. Because every single situation you find myself in with teams throughout my career, they've always been new and unique situations. Like, no two situations, even with the same team, are exactly the same, and nothing out of a book is exactly the same as what gets played out in reality. It's like that gap between theory and practical application. And the thing to find balance in that is when I am able to apply it, or secondarily, having groups of people I can talk to just to say, "Oh, hey, I heard about this cool thing," and just have that shared sense of wonder and excitement for what it could potentially bring
Mm.
really helps too. So what it comes down to is like having a community, whether it's at work, a couple of people at work, or some communities out around the globe, they can just interact with on a, I don't want to say a theory basis, but just talk about situations and what might help in those situations. And I guess it is a bit of theory crafting, um, which drives me to continue to learn. It's kind of like a self fulfilling prophecy almost.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I recognize a lot of the things. Yeah, finding a small community at the client or at work or around you. For me, it's also one of the best ways to learn about something, if it's a book or a training, is actually start applying it and teaching it to others and talking about it. And that really helps me because then I get questions that I didn't think about, and then I learn some more, and yeah, so that is usually helpful. Yeah, and so I recognize a lot of what you're saying there. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, I like what you said about using it in a way like you didn't foresee, or questions you might not have had about a practice. Last year, I did a training from the back of the room course, and one of the
Mm.
that I learned that I'm starting to apply is the one called three before me. And that idea is like whenever a question comes up, like in a training or from the team themselves, it's to get three answers from the crowd before you chime in. And it's allowed me to see so many different perspectives on a situation versus my single angle. And also, I think it solidifies the learning because the team or the trainees start teaching each other, which is when they get that diversity of talking styles and different voices. So it just like it grips into their brain a little bit longer.
Yeah, definitely, because indeed, if yeah, if there is a question and I've seen as a trainer or someone, if I give two answers, a crowd will still, the people that follow the training will still pick one of my answers, and if there's multiple answers from multiple people, they might think, oh, there's more IDs, and maybe they'll come up with their own ID, which is even better than just one of the IDs they heard,
Yeah.
because the ID that they come up with is probably more adjusted to their situation. And in that sense, yeah, our job is much more to inspire them, not so much that they pick up our ID. For my ego, it's really nice if they pick up my ID, but that's usually is not the best thing. Yeah. Let's move to that. That next question. What drives you? Because I've noticed already. You said it yourself. You like to learn. You like to, yeah, bring in, and you notice that not everybody around you has the same thing. So I feel, and I hear that you have some a big passion and a drive. Do you know where that's coming from?
Yeah, it's there was probably I don't know when. There's various times in my life where I've probably disappointed myself, and I've come back to a phrase that I like to be on my like continuous improvement or learning journey, which is to be a little bit better each day. It goes into the whole like if you improve 1% per day, those percentages they create an exponential curve of improvement, and it's that continuous improvement that drives me, and it's just like being a little bit better each day, knowing that I gave it all every day. I mean, there's certainly are days where I have to slow down and give myself some grace, and I want to say not try so hard, but I don't need to
Mhm.
be the person um, driving driving the car every single day or driving the bus. But yeah, it's continuous improvement that it really does drive me because I want to be
And
effective.
is that, can you tie it back to when you learned that, or when that is something that drove you? Is that something that was in there in Little Fred already, or is that something that came? I don't know.
I don't believe it was in Little Fred. I think it's funny that you say that because even when I was young, kindergarten age, I was never Freddie. I was always Fred. That's the serious
Mm.
part, I guess, about me. Even as a little kid, my oldest son, his name is Freddie, and he's always been that, and that's who he is. He's not Fred. He's Freddie. So it's very very interesting. But I think, um, without going into too many details, there's a couple situations where woke up the next day and I wasn't proud of what had happened the day before, and had to make that conscious effort to say, well, I'm going to be a better man today. I'm going to be a better husband, better father, better employee, better friend, all those things. And it's not about being the absolute best every single day. It's about that being a little bit better today than yesterday.
Yeah, and so I'm hearing that it also, you didn't really say it, but what I'm hearing is that it also means you don't compare yourself with others, but you mostly compare yourself with the version you were yesterday, in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good opens up my eye, whether it's with leaders at work or other people, when they're comparing themselves or comparing two different things that shouldn't be compared. It's like it's not healthy. You have no idea what went into that other person's situation to get them to where they're at right now, and even insofar as comparing your achievements versus what you thought you might achieve, that can also be a little bit unhealthy because maybe you have these teams are like, oh, we're gonna finish these 10 stories by the end of the week, and it's like, okay, based on what? And then they get mad when they don't do it. I'm like, you got to recognize all the factors that went into you not achieving whatever goal that might have been. It's not about what you did versus what you didn't do, which is probably one of the reasons whenever I see things like burn up charts or burn down charts, they make me want to burn them up, because it's this fantasy that gets created for people to compare themselves against a fantasy, and social media
Mm.
uh, exacerbates that, because whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or Blue Sky or anything like that, you see a curated version of another person. And so if you compare yourself to that curated version, you're always going to come up short. And that's a terrible burden to put on yourself, is that burden of comparing yourself to someone else's curated version of them.
Yeah, the curated version, which is typically the curated to look better, and so we're comparing our average version of ourselves with the best version of someone else, and that yeah, even that well, there's nobody who's always that good, and so that I can definitely see that yeah, might put people down in whatever
And
kind of way.
that's one thing, like for my writings that I do, like on LinkedIn, I'm not trying to put out a curated version of me. I mean, I've become a storyteller a little bit over the years, but I like to always relate it back to a specific situation that happened. I make mistakes. I'll talk about those mistakes on LinkedIn. I don't do Facebook or any other platform. LinkedIn is my social media of choice. Um, but I try to be sure, like, the person people read on LinkedIn is the same person that they might meet at work, is the same person they might meet at a conference on the stage, is the same person they might meet sitting and grabbing a coffee in the lunchroom area. I don't have like all those different versions of me. Sure, when I'm on, I probably sound a little bit different. I know I slow my voice down a touch, but the Fred out in the public space is the same as the Fred in the private space.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I recognize that that is very nice to do. I in one way I'm thinking like, yeah, this is what I want to do as well, but then at the same time I'm not sure how good I'm succeeding in these kind of things, um, because it's not that easy. And then there is, of course, if I talk about well, if I might talk about other things in my life, I might be talking about, yeah, other people as well, and they might not appreciate if I talk one way or another. But then at the same time, that's for me is also as a father, for example, a way to give an example and say like, okay, I care less about indeed what other people think about me. So yeah, that is indeed sometimes also necessary in a way to raise children.
Yes.
So thanks for sharing that, because that's indeed that wanting to be a better version of oneself. That is, yeah, something I recognize. It's that I think I have as well, and I've heard many similar kind of stories here. Although everybody might explain it in their own different kind of way. Um, but yeah, I think many people recognize that, especially in the agile space. And talking about better versions, um, what do you consider your biggest achievement? And before we jump into that question, what I've noticed is when I talk with, basically, this is your moment to brag and to be really proud. Is that easy for you, Brett, to be really proud and to be really, yeah, being that forefront for your achievement?
It's I think I've gotten more comfortable with being proud of my achievements. It's for anyone who's done any public speaking, conferences, etc. One of the first things you got to get over is the sound of your own voice, and I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's really tied. Those things might be tied together because if you can't listen or watch yourself from like a recording, you're ashamed of it, and so maybe that's why you don't talk about your achievements. Now, I always have to temper these with the audience because some people are still in that mindset of they are comparing themselves to others, where if they hear me talk about um, going to Europe, I think 4 or 5 times last year, which before 2 years ago I had never been outside of the United States. It's huge. And like, wow, how do you do all those things? So the biggest achievement for me so far is probably it's actually it's being invited to an upcoming conference that I didn't apply to.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
the organizer reached out to me. We had a candid conversation. I said, "These are a couple. I have these talks that I've given before, and I have this one that I'm working on, which I feel like there's a lot of legs behind, but it's still in the ideation phase." And they liked that one because they felt that they actually matched with the conference theme. And so
Oh.
being invited without applying is is huge. I'm not sure when or if it'll ever happen again. Hopefully it does. Um, but overall, that's kind of a over broader category of just like getting out into public speaking. I think it was less than 3 years ago. I was sitting at my computer, and I think I had heard on Vasco Duarte's podcast, there's a call for speakers for one of his conferences. And I said, hey, maybe I have a story to share. And I submitted it, and it got accepted. And I've just taken that and been able to catapult that through so many opportunities. It's been an amazing whirlwind adventure ever since I hit submit on that first conference talk less than 3 years ago.
Yeah, I can from there to being invited out of the blue kind of thing
Yeah.
without you submitting something that's a big step forward, I would say. This is also why I like so much Fosco's whole. I'm trying to find the right word. Environment, whole, yeah, everything is creating. Yeah, I love Vasco because he's creating so much nice things and creating opportunities for people basically around the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, just from his daily podcast, I would say. Well, it's not recorded daily, but it's spread out daily, and it's really wonderful how he reaches out and reaches so many people, and yeah, allows people then to go forward. Then indeed with his new conferences, online conferences that he's creating. So that is really nice, and so it's nice for you to see that from there it even moves on to a place where yeah, where you are invited. Um, yeah, like I said, out of the blue. I'm not sure what's the right word to say it, but
It was, it was unexpected. It was emergent. Um, but yeah, and I've had a pleasure of working with Vasco since that first time on organizing some online conferences and actually helping to organize his first in-person one, the Global Agile Summit in Tallinn in May, which I'm looking forward to. Um, Getting back over to Estonia and seeing that, it's been he definitely does. The opportunities out there for those that want to take it. He does a really good job of creating opportunity, but you got to be there to do it, to take it. He's not going to hold your hand through it, but he is definitely willing to hold the door open for you to walk through.
exactly, and that's the nice thing. And he's keep looking for because that's what I've noticed as well. He's keep looking for other people to give them a stage, and so if people reapply, fine. But he will not repeatedly reach out to the same people because he wants to create more opportunity and grow that for multiple
Yeah.
kind of things. So that's really nice. And so that's indeed a very nice achievement if you look to the whole everything of that. So that's thanks for sharing that because um, yeah, sometimes people look but have never spoken at conferences. Sometimes they don't always know how that actually goes, and yeah, it is indeed. So it starts with you feeling comfortable enough to say, okay, I'll apply, and daring to do that, and being ready to take on the challenge when you get that offer, and then taking it forward, like you say. So
And
nicely
the
done.
and the volume of rejection notices that you get. Everyone still stings.
Yeah,
Um, but the highs from acceptance is so high.
yeah, that's the yeah, that is good that you mentioned that people do still get rejections, even big names. I remember there was a year, it's already a long time ago, I think 2009, 2010, that actually, as far as I know, everybody from Europe was denied for the big agile conference in the States. And probably it's not everybody, but at some point it looked like everybody around me got rejected, and we all felt like, hey, what's going on? And that was just, yeah, I don't know, a coincidence, a bad luck. And it doesn't mean that we can not reapply and try again the next year, because yeah, there was a lot happening the years after that. So yeah, it's just part of applying and reapplying, and yeah. It's it's yeah. It's not about the falling. It's about getting up, and even rejecting is not really falling. It's yeah, okay. People didn't see it. It might be because we didn't apply in a correct way. It might be that it just doesn't fit this conference or this time of the season, whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes it doesn't match the theme.
Exactly. Let's move to that next one. Do you have a personal agility tip to share?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't see it on the camera, but I have a sticky note over on my from my cabinet that says my final tip is to be curious.
Mm.
And that's one thing that's driven me a lot is just that a curiosity. So when you hear a phrase that you don't know, being curious to ask, what does that mean? When you hear people talking about a certain situation, it's being curious about to understand what happened even more. Or you read something online and just being curious to interact with it. So that's the thing I think that is the best personal agility tip I can give people is just to stay curious.
Mm. And could you give some examples? Because I love the quote. It's really wonderful, but I think it might be really helpful for people here to give you some examples of where you stayed curious, where, yeah, maybe you even had to trigger something in yourself to be curious, or is that already a habit by now?
It is a habit by now, and I've found different ways to communicate that curiosity. Like actually, last week I was working with a group of Scrum Masters, and there was some hesitation about implementing what was it, like a new form or something. It's sometimes things are just processed and you got to deal with them. But there was a lot of debating over if we were going to do it or not. And I said, what's the worst that's going to happen? We're agile. We can iterate. If it doesn't work, we'll keep moving forward. It's not like we're we're doing some kind of a type one decision where there's no going back from. It just do it and learn. Um, Other ways that this has helped me, personally and professionally, is when I used to be very afraid of saying hi to people or introducing, especially people who might be like I want to say pseudo celebrities, but like people that I'm aware of. Maybe it's other speakers that or people I've seen like on LinkedIn or read something about, and I have gotten the courage to just go up and say hello because it turns out they're just real people too. And what that's enabled me to do is, a couple almost 2 years ago, it enabled me to navigate a sudden job loss very quickly because I made some personal connections that started off with me just saying hello. My name is Fred Deichler. Can we talk? Um, yeah. And then other ways that has helped me. I are you might know or be familiar with Bob Galen, badass agile coaching. And I remember years ago, I had another Scrum Master friend tell me they really enjoyed his Metacast podcast, and I listened, and I didn't like it. I do like it today, but I didn't like it, and so I kind of turned off the whole Bob Galen badass thing for a while, and then someone brought it up again, or not the podcast, but brought Bob up. I had looked, and I saw he had recently published a book, and I saw I could order it directly from him. I didn't have to go through a distributor, so I could make sure like Bob got all the money instead of having to pay out some money to Amazon or whoever. And he signed the book and sent it to me, which is great. It's on the shelf over there. But as part of that, I was looking at his website and I saw this thing called the Moose Herd, and I looked I'm like, well, that's an interesting name. It turns out it's this bi-weekly, twice a week group that meets up like-minded agile individuals who it's almost like it's like a lean coffee twice a week, but it's not time boxed in that lean coffee way. But it's like, hey, who's got a challenge that they're facing at work, and how might the wisdom of the crowd helped? And had I not been curious when I saw Bob's name come up again, I wouldn't have found his book. I wouldn't have found this moose herd. I wouldn't have found these people who, are I consider great friends now. I've made some great friends through this
And
meetup.
just for um, to understand it fully, that meetup, is that fully digital? Is that physically? How does that work?
It's fully digital, and there's people from around the world. I know that there is at least two people in the UK who regularly attend. There's a guy in New Zealand, and it was always very early in the morning for him. I'm pretty sure New Zealand, maybe in Australia, but I'm pretty sure New Zealand. But it's digital, and it helped me when I was unemployed. I could be there twice a week to continue to learn and connect and build network connections. And now that I do have a full time role, I can't go twice a week, but I make sure 3 out of 4 Fridays every month I make sure and I go. I spend my time there because it it makes me a better problem solver, better for my teams. Feel better professionally. But it is all online.
So thanks for sharing. I will definitely add a link to it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's still room for available people, a room available for people, but yeah, okay. Um, it's and so in that sense, we already talked about both a book and a person. Well, actually, multiple people. We already talked about Bob. We already talked about Vasco. Um, yeah, already very, very interesting. And we already talked a little bit about remote working, or remote at least. And that's actually that next question. What have you learned about remote work?
Um, the number one thing is some organizations, even though they are remote friendly, are still very office oriented, and where work needs to happen in a synchronous fashion. And I believe that kind of sucks. I agree that people should get together and sync up, but um, knowledge workers, although that term might be falling out of fashion, but I'm a creative individual. I need time to think, and I have like explosions of productivity that enable success. I'm able to take all these observations and my patterns and practices and formulate an idea, a plan of attack, and being able to work on that at my own pace while still delivering is huge for me. But working with organizations that are very synchronous bound, with return to office ordinances, it's it's not where I get most of my energy, because it feels like a lot of, if you go back to like lean manufacturing, like there's a lot of waste in these. And it's not to saying personal interactions are wasteful, but consensus driven environment, delayed decision making. When you're talking about like in a fast moving world, it it puts you behind competition. It puts you behind learning. And when it's remote, it's like that's just like exacerbated. And not everyone sees it the same way as me. So I have to temper some of my feelings on that sometimes. But it used to really drive me nuts. And I had to learn, we'll say the second learning is when I'm done with work, close the lid of my laptop. Like I'm in my home office. I'm on, I have a KVM to switch between my desktop computer and my work laptop. And it's very easy to always be working um, with remote working because your office is always available.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've made it a better habit at 5 o'clock p.m. For the home office to close that work laptop lid and not open it up again until the next day, and not to have work email on my personal phone. That's so a lot in there about remote work, and so I think someone comes down to working synchronously versus asynchronously, and then also knowing your boundaries because the lines blur so easily.
Mm. And and is that something that you've learned the hard way, or is that something that you very quickly realized? How does that go?
Definitely learned it the hard way because more than once, or actually 3 times, I've been laid off from organizations, made redundant for organizations that I absolutely loved. I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into pretty much, and to realize it's for some organizations, it's employment can be is more transactional than relational, and getting burned those 3 times has definitely probably made me a little bit more guarded in my
Mm.
laid my true self out at work, but it's also made me realize that work doesn't define me, and it's very empowering to close that lid of the laptop and leave the office.
Mm. And and how easy is so you say it's empowering, but how easy was that to learn that? Because like you say, you learned it the hard way. Was that in the beginning when you needed to do this? Was that easy to just indeed close it and not come back?
No, because I care so much. I'm so curious. I have so much to drive for improvement that work situations were always on my mind. And it really wasn't until the third time of dealing with being laid off that I realized something had to change. Otherwise, I was just gonna keep getting hurt personally more so than professionally. And so in order to do that, it just like it's kind of a little bit symbolic to close that lid, because then it takes a lot of effort to reopen it to get back in.
Right.
Um, so it's actually more like the last year or so that's been a concerted change of mine.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. It is something that is really important to consciously decide. Or okay, I don't want to do it, or I do want to do it, whatever the choice is, but make it a decision and not a habit. And yeah, that's that is something that is a good thing to learn. And I do recognize that it's for a lot of people, it's a lot harder these days since we can work at home. Since laptops existed, it was already easier for people to do something at home, but now with the remote world, everything is available. So, yeah, especially in the knowledge work, I would say.
There's
Um,
a phrase that I like to remind myself of. I'm not always good at respecting it, but it's instant message delivery does not require instant message response. Just
mm,
because you see something pop up in your phone, on Slack, etc., that doesn't mean the other person is expecting you to respond right away. Now, I'm sure there's situations where that's true, but just because you read it doesn't mean you have to respond to it.
it's these are asynchronously ways of communicating, but somehow we have taken over habits of synchronously. I mean, when there is a phone call, you need to respond immediately, or you don't know. Well, you these days you know who's calling you, but you don't know how urgently it is. So but when there is a message, we already know what is. At least if people are smart enough to send the full message and not saying hey, hi, hello, instead of what they really want. But indeed, it's like you can, yeah, you we have a way to see if there is a difference between it's urgent or it's, yeah, is it really important, and then reply at the moment that it's better for yourself.
Absolutely.
And this is why I've turned off, I think, like all pop-ups and everything on my phone. I haven't installed Slack on my phone. Like, If I work on my laptop, if I see it, I can reply, but I don't want to see that these kind of things on my phone. It's a choice to decide which kind of which kind of messages do I want to see and which ones I don't want to see. That's it's again something that we have to train ourselves and learn from these things.
Yes.
So thanks for bringing that, because it is indeed an important part about remote work, learning how to deal with these kind of things. Let's move to that next question. What is a book that you have read that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I did reference, Bob Galen's like badass agile coaching book, but the one that it's actually not in that realm I have right here is it's Essentialism by Greg McCown.
Yeah,
And
and this one indeed, I have a different cover, a little bit a different cover
yeah,
because it's 10th of an anniversary. But yeah,
and I
why do you
love
want people to read this book?
because it help me and helps other people with focus, like determining the most important thing to do. So like as a scrum master and coach, you probably observe a lot of different things happening and you're very much in a reactionary mode, and you can spend all day reacting little bit by little bit and really move yourself nowhere. There's a drawing in the book of a circle with a bunch of arrows in all different directions, and it's basically like you're not going anywhere. But if you put all of your effort, all your arrows into one direction, you can really move yourself, move your team forward. There's another aspect of this, which is like when you get a request, if it's not a F yeah, it's a hell no. It's really about making, getting back to what you said just a bit ago, which is about making that choice. And I think this book really helps you identify, things that you should be putting your effort into, because so many people are going to want your time and want little bits of your effort. But if you're just doing a little bit here and there, you're not getting anywhere. You're that circle with the arrows in a bunch of different directions. You're not really getting anywhere. You're not growing yourself. You're not enabling people to solve their own problems.
Hmm.
But by limiting, what you're going to do, you can actually have a greater impact. It's very similar to like why we, suggest limiting whip for teams. Focus on a couple things, you'll get them done, versus focusing on 10 things and get none of them done. So that's a there's a lot more to it. It's been a little bit since I read it. But I know when I did, it really stood out to me. And I love also like the very bold sections of the book. Like this is like eliminate. What can we cut out? Like I think he does a really good job with the visuals in the book too. And just I'm not a big book reader, but this one just felt good. It's got the right paper, it's got the right visual composition, and really help me just like with focusing on having that maximal amount of impact that I can have.
Mhm.
And I think as a scrum master, like there's a lot you could learn here with like to coach out to like product owners and teams around focus. It's like whenever you're working with a team and a request comes in, and everyone's so excited about this new request. It's like, cool. If we say yes to this, what are we saying no to? That's kind of baked into essentialism a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think it's so, especially that statement is so important that people need to realize that every yes means no to anything else. And for me, also the opposite I like so much. If people say yes to everything, basically, yeah, their yes doesn't mean anything for me, because it's only when people are able to say no that that their yes actually starts to mean something. And at the same time, I know how hard that is as a person, because yeah, especially when you have people around you asking you, clients, stakeholders, your partner, your children, like everybody wants a yes. But the more we say it, the less our yes means. And that is so true to have it at multiple levels, both the yeses and the nos, but really at a level that, okay, when you say yes, what does that actually mean that you're saying no to? And yeah, sometimes people think, oh, but you can say everything. No, 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 that's not how it works. Uh,
I mean, I just a couple weeks ago I said no to a vice president. Well, I said not yet. They
mm,
asked me for some data analysis, which I'm good with, like distilling information down into a digestible format. And I said, I understand this is probably a very urgent or important request for you, but I'm working on these other two major rollouts, and I cannot get to this till the end of the month. And it was a little scary to tell them not yet, but they're like, okay, I understand. Thanks for letting me know.
mhm.
100% understanding. And um,
And
professionally,
and
then
like you say, before you said that, you were scared. So basically, you had no idea how the reaction would have been. It could have been a tantrum. It could have been anything, but it turned out that it was actually an acceptant one.
yeah, and had they said no, this is very important, I might have asked them or my leader to help me prioritize my other work,
Mhm.
because I want to be sure I'm fulfilling on other people's requests that they need from me. Because if it is that important, I can definitely do it. But then I say no to something else, and that's
Mhm.
fine. Um, and then even recently, professionally, I was working with another coach. We have a mutual relationship where we mentor each other, and they had mentioned that I had seemed like I was spread a little bit thin, and so they suggested I start keeping a task list of things that I've said no to.
Oh,
And so I started doing that, and I will say the couple things I've said no to, it's more like a not yet. It's almost like putting it in the backlog, but I will actually get to it. Um, I said no, I can't do
but
that yet.
that's a nice way of saying no. I think people think that a no should always be, yeah, a very hard one. It could be indeed just like you say. It could be just like, okay, not yet, or what else do you want me to remove from my current list of doing? And that's also a kind of no, or at least asking that person who can set the priorities about, okay, what is then less important than that new thing that you're asking me? And they might say yes, or they might say no themselves then, and say, oh, I didn't know idea that you were working on these 10 other things that are important. So maybe, okay, that's fine. Let's not do anything then, or let's not do that new thing. So that is a nice way of saying no, but we have to be consciously thinking about it and asking people about these kind of things. And of course, the higher up in the food chain that person that is asking you, the harder it is, and the further away, if it's someone with power, the harder, or if it's someone closer to you, that might also be harder for some people because we want to please the people close to us, the people we're working closely together with. So there's all kind of reasons why these kind of things are really hard for many people, I would say.
Yes, yes, yes. It's hard to say no.
And is that something that, because that person that you work with who told you like, okay, keep a list of the things you say no to, are there other tricks that you're using to learn more to say no? Because that list, I love it. That it's a really great tip. Um, are there other things like that?
Yeah. So last year, right before Christmas time, I had a pretty serious case of burnout. I was going pretty hard on lots of personal and professional fronts. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I did one day, I had to take the sticky off my desk. It's probably down there, but I wrote myself a prioritized list of 2025 goals, or
Mm-hmm.
right here in my monitor where I could look at and say, like, hell, you know, is this helping me achieve that number one, number two, number three goal? Now, the list had 8 things on it, but part of that was acknowledging those other things I still cared about, but knowing like I was doing other things um, that were more important, dealing to get to longer term goals. And what it comes down to is just having that consistent and constant visual reminder of what is that
Mm-hmm.
most important thing. And a sticky note is a great way to do it on your work, on your desktop. your monitor, you put it to the bottom, and every time you look at it, your eyes are always right there.
Mm,
Now, if you have a ton of stickies everywhere, it becomes visual noise.
exactly.
But if you use it sparingly and it's placed in the right spot, and you reference it, it really helps you solidify those decision matrices to know, like, I'm doing this. Or when you get down to a spot where no one's asking you for a specific thing, you can go to your list and say, okay, is there anything I can do to help achieve goal number one? And if so, that's the most important thing to work on. Unless actually the most important thing to work on is some relaxation, which got to do that from time to time.
Mm. Yeah, relaxation is always these things that are relaxation, sport, all these kind of things are like typically down our list, especially if we're busy with a lot of things, until our body shuts down and says like, now this is the most important thing. And the trick to learn is to do it before our body says it, because then it's real relaxation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I recognize that that's not always easy. But if we don't say yes to that, at some point our body will decide for us when is the time. So yeah, that's indeed a good way to do that kind of things. I want to move to, for me, one of the most interesting questions. What question do you think I should also ask you, and what is the answer?
That's a very tough one, and I went back and forth on how to answer that. Like, my initial reaction was, um, "Who the hell are you, and why should I talk to you?"
Mm,
Because I go back to that guy, 3 years ago, submitting his first paper, or 6 years ago, sitting in my car unemployed, making a deterministic statement like, I'm going to be on Vasco's podcast one day, to tie it back to him. I sat in my car, said I'm going to be on that podcast one day. Just some random guy sitting in a car saying that to myself. So that was like my first reaction when I saw that question, is like, why should anyone listen to me? And one, I don't know if you should. I'm not saying I say bad things, but I definitely um, know less than a lot of people, and maybe it's some of that is the I have a good amount of humility. Maybe I have a good amount of just getting myself into situations. So many times I felt like I am that. I don't say dumbest person in the room, but I say I have the most to learn from everyone else who seems so amazing, um, that I have the privilege of spending time with, whether it's people at the Moose Herd, to I've been involved with the um, Agile Coaching Growth Wheel core group. I've gotten in there, and there's some amazing people in that group that I am consistently in awe of their knowledge, their experience, the answers to questions. Um, so that's really what I go back to, and that kind of ties to that conference I got invited to, which is like, how did I get to where I'm at so fast? Because a lot of people, they see that curated version, and they don't realize all of the effort that went into getting to sitting down with you here today. And so, for anyone sitting there, if they're watching this or they see me or something else, and they or start to compare themselves with someone else who has maybe something that they want to achieve, I would say the biggest thing that's helped me in my life is just been setting that vision, setting that goal, which maybe it sounds a bit simplistic, but we think with our teams, we help them with product vision and product goals and sprint goals. But doing that personally is also huge. Like, I have these moments in my mind, in my life, where I was over a decade ago. I was visiting, or we lived in Minnesota, which, for those in the United States, it's a about 4 to 5 day car drive, like with camping, etc., to go from Minnesota to California, where I grew up. And I remember it was in the summer, and we got there to my parents' house, and my sister and her boyfriend were there. My brother was there, and we went onto a lake, and we just started swimming. And I'm sitting there in the water with my kids and everybody, And I said to myself at the point, I'm like, I want this to happen a couple times a year versus once every couple of years. So I set this vision.
Mm.
Um, and then I was able to achieve that by moving to the West Coast. And then there was that time in the car where I said, I'm going to be on that podcast. I set that vision. And all of a sudden I found myself there. And it's not by accident. It's by following through on those goals. When I got to be on the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel core team, I set that vision. It's like it's something I'm passionate about, which is personal development and growth. And I said, this is a group that I think has a lot of influence in the space, and I want to be there in the room with those people. I want to help them guide everyone else. And I have another one that I'm working on, which I'm not saying publicly, but I'm trying my damnedest to get to that one this year. And so the question you should ask is like, how did you get here? And the answer is by and just knowing, having that clear vision for what I want to accomplish, and just
Mm.
going out and doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, this is interesting that the asking of the question took longer than the answer, but actually the answer was part of in your question. I really love that. So that's probably the nicest way someone answered this question, because there was so much depth in that question already. I love it. I love it, and it actually shows indeed the answer in it. So so thank you for doing that. It's also that in a way is inspiring, um, because like you said, and you said it earlier on as well, it people only see a part of that and they don't know the whole story behind it. And of course we only see, yeah, the yeah, the successes. We don't see the no's, we don't see all the hard work, all the, yeah, the collaboration and the talking with all these other smart people from who you learn so much, and from who learned from you as well. But yeah, it is important to share these kind of things. So thank you for doing that. Let's move already to that very last question. Who do you think I should ask next? And I think you have a couple of people you wanted to invite.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, I think, two people I had included. The first is my German friend who lives in Holland, Tom Siebenecke. Um,
And I think this is Tom.
no, that's Jim. We'll talk about Jim
Ah,
first.
let's
Jim,
talk
Jim's
about Jim
here.
first.
Jim is uh, he's a PST here based in the United States. I know he works a lot with Europe. He's actually working with some Dutch company, I believe, right now. Um, and I heard him speak on a podcast, and I just reached out to him, and out of the blue. And since then, we've had numerous conversations, um, just about personal and professional. And I really love the way Jim talks and brings these very down to earth messages. He is always willing to admit mistakes.
Hmm.
He doesn't believe he's better than anybody. He's a really good guy that I've gotten to know over the past couple of years, and it's all about, I guess, having that courage just to send him a message one day, say, "Hey, I was actually going through a very stressful situation, and I saw a lot of patterns, and the stories Jim had said were similar to the ones I'd gone through." I said, "Hey, can we talk?" And he's like, "Absolutely."
Hmm.
And that's Jim. He's an amazing person.
Yeah, that. Thank you for doing that. And it's indeed, if you can send someone out of the blue a question to, especially because you recognize some of the patterns,
Yes.
then it's very nice if people respond. It's not always possible, but I've noticed that with many people, especially if people tell you like, "Hey, I recognize some of the patterns. Can we have a conversation around that?" That's really is, yeah, a nice way of getting in touch and learning something, typically on a much deeper level.
Yeah.
So indeed, so a good person to talk on. And then indeed, I mixed up the two people. So this is the other person. This is Tom then.
That's Thomas Ibenaga. Yeah, he lives in Holland. He's German. And we met a few years ago at Scan Agile. and we just really hit it out. He's a very thoughtful person. He's very driven. It probably comes from his German upbringing. Um, but he's always been willing to share ideas with me, and we WhatsApp back and forth, and very very knowledgeable, smart guy. That is just he's another wonderful person just to hang out and have a pint with, or he's willing talk about life, fatherhood, as much as dealing with product issues, the whole gamut of the things we both probably deal with.
Mhm. So again, nice story, nice way to invite someone. Wonderful. I'm really happy that Sathpal invited you to be here, because I had a really wonderful time. So thank you for your time. Um, Fred, for the people that want to connect with you and learn more about you, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is my only social media.
So
So
that
that
should be your address, if I'm correct.
absolutely, or right there, yeah. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and please, when you do that connection, if you see this, put a note in there. Sig, you saw me on Who's Agile. It just helps me know and prioritize that, because I don't always get to the invite list as often as I'd like. Because trying to be sure I don't let LinkedIn run my life. But say you heard me there. Additionally, if you happen to see me at a conference in person or digitally, please come up to me, introduce yourself. Don't be afraid. I don't bite. Uh, we can have a the kind of conversation whatever you want to have.
I think that's a wonderful way to indeed to make new friends, talk to people, especially speakers. They don't bite. It's good to. It's usually a lot of people. We speak because we hope that people then come to us. If we tell interesting things, that's one way to connect. A little bit like you gave the example of connecting to someone who shared things that you recognized with, that you said, hey, that might be a good way to connect. So might be a nice way to do that at the conference as well. Well, Fred, I'm sorry I wasn't at the Scrum gathering in Ghent for priorities. I It was at the moment that there were exams. With my children had exams, so for the one time that it was in Ghent, yeah, I decided not to go. Although the Scrum Gathering was on my list for a long time, and I didn't think I would say no. But again, priorities are important, so that's why I said no at that moment. But I'm pretty sure we might run into each other again at some other conference. So thank you very much
I
for your
hope
time.
so. Thank you for the conversation. It was wonderful.
Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.